If you're watching this video, it's because you're a game design student who's chosen the shooting genre to be your focus for your project. In this video, I'm just going to give you an overview of the various mechanics and assets available to you in the project, and in the next one I'll explain in a bit more detail how you can get them to work in your own custom ways. To begin with, make sure that you've play tested this game and gotten a sense of what is available to you. Next, let's do a tour of the assets that you have in your project. In the image folder, you have the references for those target highlights you see when you mouse over items, as well as the target reticle at the center of your screen. Technically, you could change these images out to custom ones if you'd like. In the materials section is just the various colors I've used to set up the basic initial colors of some of these different building blocks of my objects, but of course you could always edit and change these on your own as well. Prefabs is where we have prefabricated or pre-crafted built objects. This is the most important folder in the project and where you'll be probably referencing a lot to kind of expand and add in already working content to make your game a little bit more rich and custom. We'll be in here quite a bit more really soon. Our scenes folder has really just two main scenes and some lighting information you don't need to worry about right now. They just made the scene look a little bit brighter and nicer here. The shooter test level is the one you probably play tested, but you'll notice there is a level 2, which is quite simple. All it has is a target manager, a player, and a plane, so that you have kind of a very basic framework to add content to. But this level should be loaded once you've completed the content or killed all the targets in the first level. Notice how level 2 is referenced in the target manager. Over in scripts, here is all the code that's used throughout this project for various purposes. In the next video, I'll be explaining a bit more about how you could, if you're interested, take and adapt some of this code to your own custom items, or I guess playable game assets. The shared assets folder has a bunch of miscellaneous assets I was kind of referencing a bit in my development of this prototype. You're free to poke around. There might be some visuals or prefabs you might want to use in there for your custom work if you're interested. The sounds has just a few of the basic sounds that are being used, as well as a couple other gun sounds that you could switch things to if you're interested. And finally, the textures folder includes just a variety of textures that were provided with some of the assets I built in. You might want to ignore this. It's not necessarily useful for you, but I kept it in there because it's referenced in a couple files. In the project itself, in our main level, you'll see that there are a number of different main components that you can expand or contract to see more or less information. The environment section includes all the lighting components, the arena, walls, and decorations inside of it that are organized in these subcategories. This is to keep the level or the assets, this side panel, the hierarchy, from getting too cluttered and busy. And I highly recommend that you package things up together in a similar way. For example, if I'm creating, let's say I go into my prefabs and I want to make a bunch of different enemies in my game. So I'm just going to drag a bunch of them into the scene. Now they're all stacked up on top of one another over here. See, I can move them around. But now I have a bunch of enemies filling my scene. What I could do is right click and create an empty and call this enemies. And then take all my enemies, highlight them all, and drag them underneath it so that I can contract it and hide them all away. This enemies folder basically contains all the enemies in this level. But inside of it, I can see them individually. And now maybe I'll move some of these around a little bit more just so you can kind of see these separated out. Now all the enemies, I think, are separated. Yeah, so we have these 6 enemies. And now what I can do is, if I ever want to, well, change something about all enemies, I can do it from here. It's mainly for organization. I'm going to delete the new ones for now, however. I'll keep the folder, actually, for that one enemy you have in the scene, though. It seems like a good idea. Our player element in the hierarchy includes the information for the controllable player. This comes pre-built and pre-packaged for you. In the next video, I might explain a bit about how some of this content works over here, but you are able to edit a bunch of different settings about the player under this first-person controller thing. And if you want to kind of change the feel and kind of game mechanics side of the controls, there's lots of things you can tweak and toggle on the side here. Underneath the player is its camera, which needs to be attached to it for some reason. And notice that also the target that surrounds highlighted objects is also attached here. Underneath that is the gun attached to the camera. And under that is the weapon, and under that is the end of the gun. Lots of different pieces to things. that if you're curious how a weapon is built in a project like this, you can take a peek at and see how things are done. A raycast is that little beam of light for the laser you see being shot out, being processed. Well, the viewer does that, and the raycast is actually that mechanic of shooting out an invisible ray to check if something is hit. You can see that the fire rate is determined under here. So if you wanted to change the rate of fire for your weapon, you could edit it under here. The range, so how far your shots travel, and then the force. So you can see if I crank this up to 1,000, if you remember that when I shoot those boxes, they moved. They were 100 before. Now with 1,000, it really kind of hits with a big punch. So you can edit that value in there if you're interested in kind of changing this. And if you want to add more than one gun and switch between them, well, I didn't build that functionality in. That's something that we could work on if you're interested in learning a bit more about coding in person. All right, let's bring the player down. Other than the canvas, this canvas includes the reference to health and the target reticle. How do we actually see this health? Now, if I play the game, the health is going to be up on the top right there on the screen. You see health 10. So how do I actually see that in my editor? Well, the canvas is actually hidden in the 2D view of the game. So if I press 2D and I zoom out, I'll be able to see this. Well, if I double click it, it's easier to find here. The canvas here. This is where the health that I can actually move around just like anything else. Oops, clicked off of it. Move it around like anything else is here. And the target reticle in the center of the screen. I probably don't want to move that. It needs to be dead center. But we'll also see that this target's left is tucked away somewhere else. We'll get to that in a sec. So the player has a bunch of stuff attached to it. It has the controls. Head back to 3D for a sec here. Head back to my player. It has the controls. It has the camera. It has the guns, the shooting, and it has some of the information for the world. Notice that the player is quite a simple image here. Now, quick note here. You see all these kind of labels that are blocking the view of the player? These are gizmos. I can actually just turn these all off if I want to by clicking off on the gizmos here. Lets me see things a little bit more clearly. Because I'm inside the player, I don't actually need anything more than an arm to be shown because I'm never going to see the body itself. You could build a body for the player, but in a first-person game, you only really actually need to show this. So if you ever want to add like your own custom weapon or custom components, just think about adding what you see in the player's view, like from the camera. See, when I have the camera selected, I can see this perspective down here. Okay, I'm getting a bit rambly. Let's cover the last few things on the side here. Toggleable objects are special things that in the game, if you shoot them, they don't get destroyed. They turn things on or off. On or off. So I have in the game just one toggleable object for you to kind of experiment with. And inside this is just an organizational folder. Inside the toggler is the thing that actually toggles the things on and off. Notice on the side here that I'm actually able to choose a starting color. Maybe I want to make the starting color, I don't know, this kind of a nice blue. The on color and the off color, maybe, I don't know, green for some reason here. I can change those settings. And now when the game starts running, it's actually going to put it to blue for off and green for on. So we have the ability to kind of customize the look and feel of stuff in this game. I can also make it start on instead of starting off if I want things to be spawned in when the game starts. So here, you'll see that it actually is already on. I can always toggle it off with a shot, but you get the idea that I can change the initial settings here. I also have a connection point for the thing I want to turn off. In this case, it's the cylinder, where I have actually dragged the cylinder into the slot here. So that's the cylinder that gets toggled on and off. But technically, I can actually have anything I want be toggled on and off. For example, what if I wanted to have this wall here be the thing that gets toggled? Well, this wall, which one was it? Let's do this end one. This wall 2, 00M. Let's see if I can remember this spot here. On my toggler, I'm going to take this wall and put this, the thing that gets toggled, instead of the cylinder. And now when I shoot this, that wall turns on and off instead. So the thing I have attached to that object becomes the thing that gets toggled. I'm going to keep it being the cylinder for now, however. So you're actually able to switch what the toggler affects, or you can add in more togglers to toggle different components in the game if you see fit. Event system, ignore it. It's just there in the background doing some stuff we don't have to worry about right now. Finally, our target manager. This is the thing that manages the state of our game. When I run the game, I'm actually able to beat this level. How? Well, I have targets left 3. When I highlight over this box, it's a target. I shoot it, it dies. 3 hits, it has 3 health, targets left 1, and I have this target on the wall. When I shoot it, I move to a new level. So how does the game know when I've beaten a level by hitting all of the targets? It's because I've put those targets inside of this folder here. Anything that gets put under here counts as a target. Notice I have 3 targets. I have target box 1, 2, and then the target on the wall up here. The canvas is simply just how many targets left visual user interface information that we can just ignore and leave that there. You might have noticed when you played your game that the enemy over here, this little cute box, doesn't count as a target. If I run my game and I head over to the enemy, let this cute little guy chase me, and I shoot him, poor guy, gets bounced back. Notice my targets left are still 3 because I didn't count that enemy as a target. I could have by doing this, dragging my enemy into my target manager. Now, my target manager should automatically say 4 targets left, and if I kill this enemy, I'm gonna bully this guy a little bit here. It didn't update my targets left, so I'm gonna have to fix something in my code here. But by the time you play it, that should actually work. I'll have to do a debugging fix here. But when you play it, you should be able to just drag and drop it into that slot and then have that be processed. So there you go. There's all the main components in my scene, and in the next video, I'm gonna show you how to create some of the stuff in a custom way on your own. See you in the next one.